Hi, everyone, and welcome to this conversation with myself and Katie Carlin tonight. Katie is joining us from her home here in Scotland as well. And Katie and I met back in February when Katie joined me for some silent counselling training. And so she's joining me tonight. Thank you for joining me, Katie, to talk about her journey with this incredible modality, which only started in February this year. So, Katie, welcome. It's lovely to have you here. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on and talk about your experiences so far because you have got some incredible things to share. So, I'm very grateful for your time, and I would love if you could introduce yourself and just share a little bit about your pathway so far to the point of stepping in to train with myself back in February in this incredible modality.
Yeah, sure. So thanks for having me. It's really nice to come here and do this with you. This is exciting. But, it's especially exciting to sort of tell people about the impact that silent counselling's had, especially on a lot of my clients as well. But my background's in psychology predominantly. And then I trained as a Reiki healer. So I also train people in Reiki. And I found silent counselling through Reiki because someone who trained with me had trained with yourself. And she was talking about how amazing it was and the impact it had on her actually directly. And I thought, I'm going to look more into this. And I felt something else was coming that I needed to train in because I often felt that sometimes I needed something else on top of what I do for certain clients. And I felt that they needed something that would help them, give them a releasing in maybe a different way. And when I looked into silent counselling, I thought, this is it. This is the time I have to do. This is what was coming. And so I contacted yourself and let's do the training with you. And it's been really amazing, and the impact it's had has been really amazing as well.
And I'm so, so glad that you did step in and follow your heart, Katie, and found your way to this training. And, for me, silent counselling has been a gift in my life. I discovered it a few years ago, became a practitioner, first of all, like yourself. So you trained with me in February and you were certified by the end of April. So in no time at all, which was amazing. So celebrating you with that. I like people that take action. Um, and then that evolved for me into becoming a trainer and then a tutor with the Institute of Silent Counselling. And as a former teacher and head teacher, I often used to get really frustrated with, I felt like there were a lot of things that were said in the educational world about changing things and moving things forward, but we weren't actually putting things into action. So this beautiful modality found me at the right time. So I had transitioned over from one career into really delving deeper into the work that I now do. And when this modality came along, I thought, oh my goodness, I wished I had known about this when I worked in schools. So for me, it's one of the most simple modalities to learn. So for any of you that have listened to Katie's beautiful introduction here and are maybe feeling a little bit like, but I don't have any experience behind me. What would you say to them, Katie? Do you feel that, maybe it's been an advantage for you having a background in psychology and, having the experience that you do as a Reiki master teacher, but do you feel it's necessary to have that as a background first and foremost?
I mean, probably it would help in terms of that you're used to seeing clients and holding that space. But I think the training does equip you for doing that anyway. And the way I feel the training is, you have everything you need to hold a session. So although, I have sort of background in Reiki and I was used to sort of seeing clients and carrying out energy healing, and the same with my mindfulness teaching and taking people through that. Those helped, I suppose, sort of structure a bit of a session. But I wouldn't say you need that to go on and do silent counselling because it's its own thing in its own way. Um, and I feel that you sort of start feeling your way on how you're going to hold your sessions and how you go through what's covered in a session with silent counselling. And I think you can sort of use it to, adapt to that client that you have in front of you. So no, I don't think you need it because it's its own thing. So they don't get carried out in the same way either.
Yeah. And I love, love, love that you've shared my opinion about it because I think it's so simple. It's so simple. It's 2 days of training. You get all the support you need. You get your materials, your manuals. And what we offer now is level 1 training, which is 1 day of training so that you can use that personally and you can use it for your family and friends. And then the 2 day training, which is level 2 training, which is what you stepped into, Katie, as practitioner. So you have the potential to become a certified practitioner. So you came on the 2 day training in February.
Mhm.
You got all the materials and all the resources. And I just want to say on that point that it's not just that you have the training, you also have the support of myself in the background as well. So, as you know, I've got currently a Facebook support group where everybody that I've trained is in that group if they choose to come in, and that there's ongoing support in there, which is not just from me, but it's from everybody. It's available if anybody wants to have it. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that in as well because you're not just left then to your own devices
Mhm.
after the
Mhm.
2 days. But what I loved about when you came into the training, Katie, was your absolute desire to go and your excitement, just your absolute excitement to get started with this.
Yeah.
Because no matter what our background is, we've learned something new.
Mhm.
These are the messages that I want to get out to people that this is such a simple modality to learn.
Mhm.
You will be amazed in the transformations that occur, as we're going to hear from Katie here. And it's like, how can we not, now that we know this and we can see how effective it is, how can we not go out and help people and transform lives? And you know, today, sadly, I've just heard of a young lad who lived fairly locally, 20 years old, who had sadly taken his life. And we know his girlfriend and their family, and it's devastation, all around. And when I previously had a podcast, and you'll know in the training, I talk about real life stories whilst respecting absolute confidentiality. It's important for us to remember that these are real lives. But we now have this incredible modality to help transform and improve lives. And so this is what fires me up because as a former teacher, head teacher, we often spoke and spoke and spoke about the impact of trauma, about the impact of, big emotions that may be held within the cells of our body because the body holds the score, right? And then, of course, we have the thought field where we can be remunerating thoughts and we can become really anxious and get ourselves in a state of overwhelm because of too many thoughts. So, although we were well intentioned in education and we spoke about all the things that we could do, and we were applying all these beautiful techniques, and you mentioned mindfulness earlier, I brought mindfulness and meditation into my whole school. And that was a non-negotiable. We did that daily. We had meditation every day. Whilst these things help, undoubtedly, what silent counselling does is really, for me, the best way I can describe it is we're not just trimming the weeds.
Mhm.
We're taking a hold of the weeds and we're pulling them out by the roots.
Mhm.
So we're getting to the root cause of any issues. And the earlier we can, get in and support youngsters and children, then they're not going to be carrying these high levels of trauma into young adulthood and the adulthood and still be compounding all these emotions. And of course, as I've mentioned, it's stored in the body. So I just wanted to acknowledge all of that before we go delving into some of the real stories and the real life examples of what you have seen, Katie, and not just in humans either. So I'm going to hear a little bit more about our friend Peter as well. So what do you feel, Katie, like when you started, like, just a few months ago, right, which is no time at all, back in February, you did the training and you were keen to get started with your case studies. What were some of the immediate things that really stood out to you and struck you about this modality?
I think the quickness it had and people feeling a change. And I was surprised at that because, I felt that when I was doing my training, but you didn't know if other people were going to feel that. And they did. So it's almost like watching a similar impact that I could relate to I had on my training, but I was watching them do it, where they were really amazed at the release, how
Yeah,
quick the release was happening.
yeah,
Um, and also when you were going back over any of the meridian points, it was from how they were saying, I can't connect to that anymore. And they'd done the same thing as me when I thought, I think I'm doing something wrong. So I'm glad that happened. And then I asked you and you explained, well, that's what we want because that means the emotion's not there to connect to.
yeah,
And so now when people say that to me, I can explain that to them. But I'm surprised that when people try it, the impact that they feel. One person recently that I'd done, um, they, they said, "What what was that just happened? That's like some sort of magical force or something that's just happened to me." And they were completely blown away by the impact of that release and how quick it is. So
yeah,
once people try it,
yeah,
they're very intrigued why that they feel so different.
yeah, yeah.
So,
And that's what I love about this because it is magical, but it's not magic. This is real. So I think about everything in my world is magical, everything. And I talk about silent counselling being magical, but it's not magic, but it is alchemy. And what
Mhm.
we are doing is we're giving people their power back
Yeah.
so that what this is what really struck me about this modality, Katie, and I don't know if you felt the same way that I could be charging clients all day long for Reiki and my hands-on intuitive healing, and I've trained in various different techniques, and I could keep taking people's money, or people can go to, and there's a place for everything, I'm not dissing any of it. They can go for counselling.
Mm.
I have done in the past. I'm someone who has suffered from severe depression in my
Mm.
life. And, we can go for counselling. Some of my clients have gone for weeks, months,
Yeah.
years, and
Yeah.
they're still feeling stuck
Mhm.
in that story. And what blew my mind about silent counselling is that you're liberating yourself. You are becoming the victor of your life. You're no longer the victim, and you're no longer reliant on an expert or
Mhm.
a
Mhm.
therapist
Mhm.
who's taking good money from you for weeks, months, and years. It's like the rapid transformations that can happen in just a couple of sessions
Mhm.
blows my mind. Now, we could be talking ourselves out of a job here, Katie, but there's 8 billion people on this planet, so I don't think we're ever going to run out of people that are needing
Mhm.
access to helping themselves. And the piece for me is we're no longer relying on someone else for months and years. We can go and have a couple of sessions and then we can feel completely different.
Mhm.
And the point that you made there about some people can't access the emotion anymore. So you had, I recall that one of your case studies was a lady who, I'm saying a lady, I don't know actually if it was a lady, so I'll just say a client case study who came to you expressing that they had a lot of anger and they had tucked that away for a long time. and they were becoming upset over just minor situations.
Mhm.
And when they came for their second session, they couldn't even access that level of anger anymore. It had gone.
Yeah.
And so they decided to focus on something else. I wonder if you could just explain that a wee bit more and what happened. And obviously, we're respecting full client confidentiality here.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. That client wasn't quite sure why she had that sort of deep anger there, but they had quite a powerful shift. I've actually found that with more than one client. Next time they come for a session, you assume they're going to just do the same thing again. We're still working on, and often they'll say, "Well, that's cleared for me. I don't feel that's came back, so I want to focus on this now
Yeah,
instead." Um, and so we just you focus on another sort of part that they want to release from. And I often wonder, it could be that because that's cleared, something else has been able to come forward for them to release.
yeah,
But yeah, that client's had really great results with the anger and worry actually as well. Sort of worrying about a lot of things that happen or could happen, and so I still see that client quite regularly, and I do see a big difference in her. She looks a bit different, she looks like weight's being lifted, and she has a sort of glow about her as well. And what she liked is that she had these techniques that she could use herself. So that's what I like about silent counselling, that you've managed to sort of empower people
yeah,
as well.
yeah,
And they know they can always come back to you
yeah,
if they want to do that again.
yeah.
Yeah, it's really, you feel like you've really empowered people
Mhm,
and
mhm.
managed to get them over that hurdle, or have found this sort of new part to themselves, or this part in themselves that they thought wasn't there.
Yeah,
So I love seeing that transformation in them.
yeah. And I love that you've made that point too, because I've observed that many times in the clients that I've worked with is they'll come in initially saying that this is the problem.
Hmm.
You work on that problem and then you get to deeper layers of there are other hidden issues that come up from the subconscious. And this is the beautiful bit about silent counselling, because we're working beyond the conscious mind.
Hmm.
As we know, I mean, experts argue it's between 5 and 10% constitutes our conscious mind, and
Hmm.
subconscious mind is anywhere from 90 to 95%. So we even think about that, that's huge. So our subconscious mind, I mean, what even is the mind, you know? So it's in our body, it's this thought field and it's this energy field that's driving things like unconsciously. So blinking, breathing, heart beating. We're not having to tell the body to do these things, it's all automatic. And at the same time, we have these thoughts that are running in the background automatically. And, you know, if we're having like 70,000 thoughts a day plus, if you're like me, probably double that. Um, that's a lot. That's a lot of thoughts that are passing through. And some of these thoughts aren't even our own, but we
Hmm.
not even have a conscious awareness of all
Hmm.
these thoughts that are passing through. So, what we look at in silent counselling is we get to the root cause of these, because some of these might be programs that are running that have been running for such a long time. It may be from
Yeah.
childhood,
Hmm.
or
Hmm.
it may be that we have taken on these thoughts, these um, emotions from when we were inside our mother's womb.
Yeah.
Or it could be deep cellular memory. And for some people, they would describe that as past lives.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, what I love, love, love about this modality is that we really do get to the root cause. And I know that you had another case study client who had experience of emotional freedom technique, and she really felt like this just took
Yeah,
on things to a different level. They
yeah,
actually got to the root cause and
yeah,
got to places where the tapping couldn't take her to.
yeah, yeah. I was amazed at that one because I had done tapping in the past and you really feel a difference from it. But the tapping that we use in silent counselling is different, I feel, in a way that seems to release different. And I think it's because of the combination that you use through a session is what helps do that. But what she said was I mean, she was at the point where she wants to go and train and tap in to teach it. But she said that she's like, you're going to do the tapping work. And I just feel like what we've done there, it was, it would just like took over that. She went, it was just more powerful. The release was really strong. And she said it doesn't come back.
Yeah,
So that was a very different experience for her. I think she thought that it would be just a tapping that she's used to,
yeah,
but it was different, and she was really blown away at how powerful the release was. And a lot of clients say that to me. A lot of them say they're amazed that it doesn't seem to come back, and if there's even a sort of hint of it, they know they can do that tapping work right away, or they can bring back those affirmations that you've used in the session,
mhm,
and also the meditation. People really seem to get a lot out of the meditation because they can remember it. They can remember the journey that
yeah,
you've used. And I've had a few clients saying that they say, when I go back and think, when I was in that meditation session, we got rid of that. I
mhm,
got rid of that because I always bring it that it's empowering them, that they are doing the work. So they often will replay that and say, I went in there and I remember doing that and
yeah,
I got rid of that. And that makes them feel powerful. They're like, so I don't need to entertain that thought or that trauma anymore. So I
yeah,
think it's a mix of everything that you do in a session
yeah,
that's so powerful.
yeah. And there's a few really important points that you've raised there. So it is a blend of different
Mm,
techniques. So although I teach you the different techniques and show
mhm.
you how to push, we can piece that together if you
Yeah,
like, put it together into a session for a client. It's also quite intuitive. It doesn't have to be
yeah.
formulaic. It can be if you want it to be, but it
Mhm,
starts to
mhm,
become more intuitive.
mhm,
And for clients who will love a meditation at the end, the
mhm,
meditation at the end will really help them to attach deeply to
mhm.
the emotion. And what I'm sure you will have seen, Katie, is a lot of people get quite emotional at the meditation at the end because it's
Yeah.
such a beautiful way to put positive thoughts back in. And
Mhm,
then, of course, we are magnetizing that into ourselves. So it's more likely to really stick, and we're anchoring in that good stuff into
mhm.
the cells of the body. But the beauty of this is we don't have to use meditation either for this to
Yeah,
be effective.
that's right.
This is where, like, somebody with your skills and mine who love a good meditation and would love to offer that at the end, just a 5-10 minute
Mhm.
beautiful visualization at the end, which I always, always, always recommend. It can also be just as effective if people don't experience the meditation at the end.
Yeah.
And I also want to mention the number of clients that I've had are countless who have said, oh, a meditation, I can't meditate.
Mhm.
You've never meditated with me and never done it with me. And honestly, after the 5-10 minutes little
Mhm.
section, because I always include a meditation, they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't want to come back. What did you just do?
Yeah,
And that's at the point where a lot of people say, that was magic. Like,
yeah,
what
yeah.
never happened before? Like, what was that? Because it's felt so real to them.
Mhm.
And what's happened is because we have, you mentioned, the tapping there, and it's effective and it's got a place. And I'm a fan of tapping, the emotional freedom technique. But for me, it's like a good overall MOT. It's trimming the weeds. Whereas
Mhm.
silent counselling goes deeper, and we'll talk about some of the techniques in a second. We're
Mhm.
actually pulling the weeds out by the roots. We're getting to
Mhm.
the root cause. And this is where silent counselling differs to EFT because we're going deeper. We are,
Mm,
it's got a diagnostic element
mhm.
which EFT doesn't have. So this is a diagnostic element. So yeah, what we're doing is we're getting to the deeper layers, the layers that a client may come in and say, I've got anger issues, that I don't know where it's coming from. But actually in the next session, there might be more buried layers in the
Yeah.
subconscious that they're now consciously aware of. So
Mhm.
we're going deeper and deeper, and we're pulling these negative emotions, as we call them. Of course, no emotions are really negative, but we know what we mean when we say that. Pulling them out by the roots. And then what we're doing is we're allowing people space so that they can
Yeah.
experience meditation like they've never
Mhm.
experienced it before, because we've got rid of all the stuff that they weren't
Yeah.
even aware that they were holding on to. It's
Yeah.
incredible. And that's where the transformation becomes so rapid.
Mhm. I mean, I just sort of pick you up on the meditation point. It's right what you're saying. You don't need it because, well, with chimpanzees, I can't do meditation. Yeah, it was very powerful.
Yeah,
So that sort of brings that sort of around that it is. I feel the meditations are very powerful, but if you've got a client who can't meditate or an animal who's definitely not going to be able to meditate, it still works.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely does. So we're going to come back to talk about our friend Peter in a wee second.
Yeah.
I want to give people an idea of not to give any trade secrets away, not to give too much away, but we've, we know the name is silent counselling, right? But it's not counselling. So how would you describe it, Katie, in just layman's terms? How are you, describing it to people? How do you tell them what it is?
So explain to them it's a type of release work
Mhm.
that's blended with energy healing. And not everybody even gets the energy healing bit. So they're interested when I tell them about sort of release work and if there's trauma they feel, emotions they feel trapped that need to release. That gets people's attention. And then we're leading them through a session. So say they've came to me for something else, I'll introduce a bit of that release work on a tiny level. And then they'll say, I want to come and get a whole session of that. So that tends to be how people can experience it. And I think if they get a bit of a feeling of that release, then it seems to sort of help them then hook in to come in
Yeah.
for a session. Yeah,
And I guess that's where the magic of it is, because I always say to people, it's something that you have to experience.
yeah, it is.
We can sit and talk about it. We can talk about
Hmm.
transformations, which we know, we evidence all the time as being incredible. But to experience it for yourself,
Yeah.
my own personal journey, I went from having close to a 40-year fear,
Mm.
40-year fear,
Yeah.
pretty much, all of my life, apart from, you know, the first decade where I was a little swimmer and loved the water. And then at 10 years old, I had a near death experience. I was pulled out of the water because I was nearly drowning. And of course, that terrified me. That was a trauma that I was
Mm-hmm.
holding on to really deeply. And then I was just so terrified of going into swimming pools. The sea
Mm-hmm.
was definitely a no-no. And then I did some work on myself a couple of years ago because I desperately wanted to go on a retreat that my coach was offering to the Red Sea to swim with wild dolphins. And I was so terrified that I didn't go. And she said, well, I may never offer this again. When she contacted me to tell me that she was offering it again, I jumped in and I said, yes, 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 full body, yes, I am. And then I was like, oh,
And
committed
was it
now.
different?
So I did some work on myself, as I
Mhm.
mentioned, and it was silent counselling that I did on myself. And
Mm.
I think I did about 4 sessions to work on this fear.
Mhm.
And last September, I travelled with her to the Red Sea and I was swimming and snorkeling with wild dolphins. And
Amazing.
I only had 4 swimming lessons. And I say that in inverted commas. It wasn't really lessons as such. It was just getting in the pool, having a splash around, and just getting some water confidence. And that for me was a giant leap, a
Yeah,
giant.
huge.
And I've got so many stories. You know, you've heard some of them in the training where people
Mm.
have completely transformed their lives.
Yeah.
We're talking like shifting people from suicidal ideation,
Mm.
agoraphobia, um, their lives becoming completely different to the lives that they once led,
Hmm.
sort of um, feelings of overwhelm and anxiety and depression and suicidal ideation coming out of the blue. And of course, we know that they don't come out of the blue.
Yeah.
That's how it's presenting.
Hmm.
And then within a few sessions, these people are liberated, they're living their lives again.
Yeah.
And so this is why I'm so passionate about, me taking this out into the world and training, beautiful souls
Hmm.
self who are now, serving other people and changing their
Yeah.
lives. So I wonder if are there any other standout clients that you've worked with before we go on to hear about the chimp?
Well, a couple. I mean, one that's sort of coming to mind is a client that I've seen who she was very, very stuck. She was working at an organization and had been there for years, and she kept trying to progress and kept trying to progress, and she knew she had all these great qualities to offer, and she just wasn't getting anywhere. And she kept thinking, like, why is it I'm not progressing here? What's all these blocks that's there? So this is something she brought as part of her session. And interestingly, what sort of came up was that this sort of thinking was rooted back in childhood. So we'd done all the release work for that sort of age bracket that came up, and we done a meditation as well to release that. And that was a very powerful release. She still talks about it to this day. And then the second time, it's sort of our second session came up about her sort of moving forward. And she just done like a complete U-turn and said, well, what am I doing? Why am I like slogging away? Like, oh, pick me, like that I'm sort of desperate to move on. And she'd trained in herbal medicine years ago, 20 odd years ago. She had all this background. And it just came to her after a silent counselling session. She thought, I'm going to set up my business and do herbal medicine. Like, why am I not doing that? And that confidence was not there to do that before. But this all came forward, and she said, I'm going to train. She's looking to train in Reiki with me first, and then she's going to add in that to her, her herbal medicine. And she set up her own business. So she's next time I seen her, she's got a business page, she's got clients, all really quickly has got clients. So she last time I spoke to her, she had her first few clients that weren't like sort of referrals, that were like a first sort of paying client. Very quickly has got off the ground and running, and she's like, I'm moving forward with this. And I thought, how amazing is that to take someone who felt they weren't worthy, they're stuck, it was really beating on their confidence and their self-esteem from to setting up their own business and getting clients like
Amazing.
within such a short space of time.
How amazing. I mean,
Yeah.
these are the transformative stories that I love because sometimes
Mm.
we're getting in our own way and we're
Hmm. Hmm.
self-sabotaging our progress.
Hmm.
And so what I love about silent counselling is we don't really need to work it all out in the mind. It's
Yeah.
beyond the mind. We're going into the body and we're using
Mm.
powerful techniques to diagnose what the issue is. So we use muscle testing,
Hmm.
which is the diagnostic element to diagnose where we are storing these emotional blocks in our body.
Hmm.
And similar to traditional Chinese medicine, we're using a very simple map of the meridians. There's only 16 what we call emotion location points in
Hmm.
counselling. So we diagnose, like you've said, which points that a client needs to release.
Yeah.
We can see the transformation so clearly. Now, there's a little bit more to it than that, as you
Yeah.
know. But I'm talking about in simple terms, that's in
Mhm.
effect what we're doing. We're diagnosing where these blocks are in the meridian system, which is our energetic highways. So if
Mhm.
there's any blocks emotionally, we find them
Mhm.
and then we release them. So we don't even need to talk about the story, because actually the story is just the story. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
the emotions, these negative emotions that are getting in the way of us living
Mhm.
purposeful, fulfilled lives.
Yeah.
So we allow the client to release through breath work. So we use acupressure and breathing
Mhm.
to release from the meridian system anything that's stuck and stagnant, so that a client can get flowing again in their life. And
Mhm.
that's such a beautiful demonstration of, she was stuck, not
Yeah.
progressing, and now everything is flowing because her energy is flowing. So
Yeah.
a beautiful, beautiful example. Is there any others that you would want to share, Katie?
I feel like do you know the one about do you remember my case study, the one about the money? Do you
Yes.
remember that? That was one of the most amazing things I've ever, one of the biggest results, I suppose, from energy work at all.
Yeah.
Uh, so my client had, first of all, our first session, she was just saying at that point that she had an issue with her sister, and it was difficult, and the dynamics had been difficult for a few years, and she wanted to work on that and releasing that and releasing anger, and it was a very short sort of background, and I sometimes feel people do that when you can feel it's quite a big emotional pull and they don't want to go into it. They give you the bare bones and they're like, right. And that's what's good with silent counselling. You actually don't need that big, huge background because it knows what it's doing. So it will release this regardless of whether they give you a big story or not.
Yeah.
Some people give you a big story, but this person didn't. And so we've done all that and she's like, that was really powerful. Came back for the second session and she expanded and she said to me, I didn't tell you what the main issue was in the first session, but what the sort of issue was is that my sister owed me a lot of money. She owed quite a substantial amount of money, and she'd owed me it for about 2 or 3 years. And she said, I don't think this is a coincidence, but after my session, she had just happened to check my bank account, and she said all the money she owed me, she paid it in. She just paid it in my account. And she said she hasn't told me still that she's done it. She never sent me any messages before it. She hasn't told me even now that she'd done it. But it was just there. And she said, I thought I just blew her away. She was like, I can't believe the relationship. So I don't know if there's any sort of been contact since then, but that was causing the resentment and anger, but also she didn't feel that she could sort of speak to her sister about it. So this had just added to the strained relationship. But she just said, I can't believe I just thought I'll check my bank and every penny was paid back into her account from nowhere.
And
So
this
that's amazing.
this is the magic of this modality, right? I mean, how
Yeah,
you can explain that? Yeah.
exactly.
And we can maybe try and pick it apart and make sense of it, but this is the magic of it. We don't have to. We just see the result.
No, yeah, you see it works.
Yeah, and so, I would suggest that she was blocked from receiving
Hmm.
the money because she was holding and harboring frustration and resentment. And
Mm-hmm.
get that going, get that shifted out, and then
Yeah,
in comes the energetic match for that. She's
exactly.
now ready to receive. So it's just absolutely mind blowing. And in such a short time, Katie, for you to say, like I did when I first trained, I
Yeah,
went, this is incredible. Like all I wanted to do was silent counselling with everybody because I could not believe the transformations.
yeah.
And we've touched on your friend. Pete a few times, Pete at the chimp. And I would love, love, love to hear more about this, because when you
Mhm.
came on the training, I had shared with you all that, similar to Reiki and other modalities,
Mhm.
we work in a quantum world. We
Yeah.
work with energy, and energy doesn't have to be seen, it's like
Mhm. Mhm.
everything's energy. So we know that distance healing works. We know that by proxy healing works.
Yeah.
So silent counselling can work for anybody.
Mhm.
You can be a by proxy, and you can do the energy releases on yourself for a pet, for an animal, for one of your,
Mhm.
and that's the beauty of this.
Yeah.
So it's about the intention as well. It's about intending where that energy is going to be sent.
Mhm.
So when you shared with me your excitement for um, receiving contact from Blair
Yeah.
Drummond Safari Park, who you had been involved with previously,
Yeah.
I'd love for you to share that story with us.
Yeah. As you say, that I'd previously done work with the chimpanzees before, and what had happened since the last time I had worked with them is they had had new chimpanzees introduced into the group, and one of them was Peter, and Peter at the time I was getting told, the way it was sort of explained was he was basically causing havoc in the group, and they sort of felt like he was creating fights that didn't need to be there. Um, and one of the chimpanzees that is older, he would sort of run to her for protection, and she was the one that ended up getting the brunt of it. So it was becoming unsafe in the group. The group dynamics weren't great because of this behaviour. And I feel because this had been going on for some time, they were sort of getting a bit stuck on what to do and how to help him
Because
move
it's
forward.
physically aggressive, isn't it? And quite sort of,
Yeah, which they do.
yeah,
And when chimpanzees fight, they fight.
yeah,
It's not like they're
yeah.
just like a little scuffle. They are quite vicious when they fight. So it was at that level all
Mhm.
the time. And so they're like, we need to do something. So that's when they contacted me to say, could you come back out and do some sessions and to see if you can help? So I was like, of course. And although I've been doing Reiki, and I feel, energy work with animals, they're so sensitive to it, has a big impact on them anyway. But I said to the keeper, let's try, we'll do Reiki, but let's try adding in this release work that I've been doing. Um, and because I know her and she comes to me for sessions anyway, she said that right, that's fine. Like whatever you think would work. So I got her permission to sort of do muscle testing and do that sort of work energetically with them. And the first session I done was a distant session. So I was used to sort of doing distant healing. So I done a distant healing session with him.
So you're sitting at home,
Yeah, yeah, sitting at home.
and he's in Blair Drummond
He's
Safari.
in the German Safari. And it's just what you're mentioning there, how when you do this work distantly, you're connecting to them in that quantum field.
Mhm.
So it's just energy. Your energy has energy. So I set that intent that healing, sorry, is greater good. And I started off doing sort of distance healing through Reiki to just sort of be in his space and create that sort of environment for him. And we done sort of work, I done work there with them, and that was sort of giving me a feel for his personality, and I could tell right away he's quite a complex wee guy. And then what I do when I'm bringing silent counselling in there is I will sort of energetically ask the animals permission. Do they want to do release work?
Yeah.
And it's really interesting because initially you had to gain Peter's trust anyway, just doing energy healing. He was a bit like, what's this? He has a, and it came across very apparently he has trust issues in general. Um, so when I sort of approached that and thought we're going to do this release work, and I felt this, he was like, okay, we'll try it. So I done the muscle testing, I done all the meridian mapping to see where we were going with that, and I done those release points on him and or with him. So I'm doing the release points like you said on his behalf, on me. It's really nice connection I feel when you do that, when you feel that connection, you're helping them release.
Mhm.
And so again, it's like we were saying, obviously I can't do a meditation there because how can you? But I checked in a couple of days later. So I fed back to the keeper what I picked up on, and where his release points were and what they meant. And that all made sense to her. And what also came through was a bit about where his timeline was, as it was in the past. And it was ages between 5 and 10. So none of this made sense to them at this time. They were like, I really need to look over his notes. I don't know if anything happened to him then. I'm not sure. But what was sort of coming forward through that energetic connection was about this issue with his mum, that he had been taken away from her and he was heartbroken. But he wasn't actually taken away from her till older, to quite a bit older. And this seemed to start creating trust issues with other chimpanzees and with keepers. And when they looked over his notes, what the age that came up in the muscle testing is the age, it was age 5 to 10. When she looked over his notes, it was age 7. This all is starting to come up in his notes, this behaviour that he's displaying, and this is when it all started. But she didn't know that to start with. She's like, I'll need to look over his records. I don't even know what that is. I'm not sure if anything happened to him then, but it obviously did, and this is where this sort of was coming up. So that blew me away. I don't know why it always keeps blowing me, and I hope I never lose that. And I always think if you lose that, you need to sort of, yeah, look at it again. But it amazes me how accurate silent counselling is.
Mhm. Mhm.
So that release work was really powerful with Peter in the first session. And I checked in a couple of days later, and she said he's not done any of that behaviour. It just stopped. It just completely stopped, and he's not done it. And then I think now there's been a couple of wee things, but they're not actually sure if it's even Peter that's causing it. They think it's one of the other chimpanzees who had worked with previously. I think he needs to come back in and get more sort of sessions. But Peter stopped the behaviour, and he just hasn't picked it back up again at all. When I went out to do it in person, um, it's always amazing going in person with the chimpanzees. And chimpanzees, normally, if you're a stranger going into their space, they don't normally like it. So I'll always wear old clothes because they might throw things at you, poo, food. They can pee on you or spit on you. They can do all sorts of things, and they make all this sort of intimidating big noise. Um, and they done none of that when I was there. They done none of it. They're all calm, and the keepers were thinking, what's going on? Why are they so calm? And when I started doing the release work for Peter, in the video that I sent you, they're so glad they caught that because I had my eyes closed because I was sort of in that energetic field with them. Uh, Peter came forward and sat in front of me at the bars just to sort of let people explain that you're not allowed to go in with them because it'd be way too dangerous. But these bars, you're not that far from them, and they have these sort of iron bars. And he came and sat at the front to get that release work done.
Yeah.
And they thought it was amazing. Then
Oh,
what happened after it was they all came forward to sit in front. And one chimpanzee got all his straw and they thought he's coming up here to make his bed in this area. So he came like this with all his straw under his arms, have to say that I like this feeling, I'm going to stay there. He didn't make it there in the end, but he brought it forward, but they took it upstairs. And they said actually what normally happens is they come in, they will grab what food they want, and then they'll just go and do their own thing. He said they never stay there. and just hang about in this area. And to say Peter never comes up forward like that. He never does that. He doesn't engage with people like that, but he doesn't ever come up and sit at the front like that. That's really out of character. But
Yeah,
he recognised this is helping me. And he
absolutely.
sat there for the whole thing and he loved it.
How
Yeah.
amazing. And it shows you, you can physically see with your own eyes when you open
Hmm.
your eyes, obviously, and the keepers
Hmm.
see that he was no longer experiencing those trust issues because he really trusted you and that
Yeah.
come and be near you.
Yeah.
And I just honestly, I want to thank you so much for sharing that story because it made me cry and asked for your permission, and you got the consent of Blair Drum's.
Hmm.
So thank you to them because these are also the stories that need to be shared. You know, as I mentioned, my background for 22 years was in education, and we talked a good talk, but we weren't always actually getting to the root cause of healing children's trauma. And they're classed as a vulnerable group. Our children are our most sensitive
Hmm.
souls of the planet,
Hmm.
as are the animal kingdom,
Yeah, no,
these
sure.
beautiful animals that, just teach us so much. And,
Yeah.
I look at my cats and my dog that I'm so fortunate to have, and all I get from them is unconditional love.
Yeah.
Something startles them or causes a trauma, or, with any animal.
Mm.
How do we then help them? How do
Hmm.
we then
Hmm.
release that trauma from them? How do we help them to get back into a state of flow, into a state of trust again? And so, what you've beautifully shared, Katie, is that this is possible. This really is
Yeah.
possible.
Yeah.
And, when I was on the training to become a trainer, there was a fellow trainee who spoke about she was working with a lame horse, and after just a couple of sessions, this horse was galloping around the field again and
Yeah.
lame for months, and
Mm.
she's like, oh my goodness, I hadn't even thought to do silent counselling for my horse. So she did it by proxy, the same as what you've described. And
Mhm.
I mean, it's just life changing. And for
Yeah.
me, I get blown away every day by the rapid transformations that this creates for every soul on this planet.
It's especially important, I think, with captive animals that are in that situation because the public caused them a lot of trauma. And what do they do with that? It's not really like you can do, what do I can imagine how there's like, well, what do you do about that? And so I think animals that are in captivity, it's really important to be able to help them like that. And as far as I know, this is the first time that's been done, and it's the first time anywhere like a safari park or a sort of zoo situation has attempted that. So I was really grateful that they're open to trying that because a lot of places wouldn't be open to try it.
Yeah,
But the impact it's had,
yeah,
not just on Peter, but the group,
yeah,
it's more peaceful. So that's
yeah.
much nicer for them to be in that environment instead of having these fights sort of breaking out, now and again, or it was frequently. So
Right.
yeah, it's really amazing.
Well, well done you and well done Blair Drum Safari Park for being pioneers in this field,
Yeah.
taking this beautiful modality in to support their animals. It's just, probably is the world's first. You're here first, so
I
well
think
done.
it could be. I
Absolutely.
think it could be.
And this is one of the reasons I wanted to have this conversation with you, is so that, someday will watch this and we never
Hmm.
know what the ripple effect of this will be.
Yeah,
There's
yeah,
somebody else maybe to step in to train to learn this for themselves, or for you to go out and do more work or become a trainer yourself, Katie, which I hope you will
yeah.
one day.
Yeah.
Or for other people who are thinking, how can I help? Or what can I add into my toolkit? I've already trained in these modalities, or, I am a traditional counselor, psychotherapist. Like,
Hmm.
could this, really help my clients further and really shift the needle? If there's anybody out there, Katie, who's watching this and is maybe still a little bit skeptical or maybe a little bit hesitant or
Mm.
wants to know more, what would
Mhm.
be your words of advice to them about this?
I would say to them to try a session and see for themselves how it feels,
Mhm.
and then maybe take it from there. Not everybody's going to want to be a practitioner, but the fact you can go and learn it to do it on yourself is really great. You
Absolutely.
might start there and then go back and be a practitioner, but I'd say try it so you can feel the impact and then maybe take it from there.
Yeah, I love that advice. I love it because that's what I always say. It's like I can speak to you about it, speak to you about it, speak to you about it,
Mhm.
but until you experience it,
Mhm.
like there's nothing quite like that. It is transformative.
Yeah.
Katie, it's been amazing to have you on here. I'm so, so grateful for you generously giving your time. Thank you so much again for being this incredible ambassador of this modality as well. For anybody that's out there that wants to get in touch with you, where can they find you, Katie?
Well, you can just go onto the Facebook page I have, Arinda Scotland, and that's where you'll find me and be able to contact me. So I do in person and online sessions. Yeah, so feel free to get in touch.
Amazing, and I'm sure many people will. I'm going to also try and tag you in any posts that I put out for this as well. Thank you so much to you, Katie. Thank you to everybody that's watched this. It means so much to me that you are part of my world and you may become part of Katie's world, or maybe you're already part of Katie's world. Welcome to my world. And if you want to find out more about the training that I offer in silent counselling, please just get in touch. I would love, love, love to hear from you. Thank you very much. Thanks again, Katie.
Thanks, Kelly.